All right, welcome everyone to the current edition of the Ronin Institute Public Seminar Series. For those of you, I know many of you are already members of the Ronin Institute. For those of you who are maybe connecting with us for the first time, we're an institute that is committed to facilitating and supporting high-quality academic scholarship by independent and non-traditional scholars, particularly building a community of international researchers, transdisciplinary, and with really a focus on creating a novel model for how to do academia and in a more equitable and inclusive and humane way. Over the course of today's talk, if you have questions, feel free to drop those in the chat. Our speaker probably will not be monitoring the chat during the talk, but we find that that is a great place to log questions so that in case you don't remember what they were by the end of the seminar. We do record the actual seminar, but we stop the recording at the point where we move into the question and answer period. So Angelo tells me that the talk today will probably run about 45 minutes, and then we'll just open it up, and usually we do this in the form of a more or less free-form discussion. So as I mentioned a couple of times, our speaker today is Angelo Luidens, and he's going to be talking about the value of social cohesion in our communities. Angelo is a research scholar here at the Ronin Institute. He comes to us from Curacao in the Dutch Caribbean. He is, in addition to being a research scholar, he is a social entrepreneur. Primary interests are in complex systems, socially ecological systems science, and he is currently leading a social cohesion research team at the Think to Do Institute. If you enjoy today, you can learn more about Angelo's research on his profile page and links therein. And our next public seminar is going to be by Greg Wilcox, week after next, March 10th. And Dopics 2 is the thing if you want to memorize that short link URL.
Well, thank you, John, for that warm welcome. As mentioned, this is the seminar for the value of social cohesion in our communities, best practices designing and localizing a social cohesion survey. We'll highlight one aspect, one best practice in the interest of time that I think certainly is valuable to you and many people, in particular in the context of Curacao and how we are doing it. Before I go on with the seminar, I would like to shed some appreciation to a few organizations. Two of them are mine organizations. Starview is a business and technology consulting firm, and Genesis is a business continuity consulting firm. And the Think to Do Institute is an independent global think tank that is doing a number of research projects, among others. This one, and the Think to Do Institute is the hosting team for this social cohesion research. And of course, Ronin Institute, which I'm very grateful for facilitating and hosting this, giving me the opportunity to present this presentation. The agenda for this seminar is what is social cohesion. It's very important for us to start with the definition, as you will see. Why is it important? Why doing a social cohesion survey for Curacao is important? What is the process of conducting a social cohesion survey? What we have done, are doing here in Curacao, and conclusions and next steps. The definition, what I could say is that it reminds me of the 6 men and the 6 blind men and the elephant parable, where each man has one area, is touching one area of the elephant, and based on their feeling and touching the elephant, they provide a report on what they experienced, and each of them provide, of course, a report of what they have experienced, and which is only a part of the elephant and not the whole elephant. But if they combine their perspectives and discuss and combine this perspective, they would find out what they really are touching, each one of them. So in that sense, what I'm saying is that social cohesion is a multi-dimensional social construct that is dynamic and complex. I like to, most of the times, use the video that you see in the background to illustrate how social cohesion is. You see the fishes cohesing together, swarming together. And by nature of that behavior, they are protecting themselves collectively from the fishes, the orcas, the sharks, the dolphins, and the other bigger fishes that are attacking them. And you have even birds that are attacking them. So looking at social cohesion from one aspect only is not very valuable. You need to look at it from a different perspective. And that consideration, and that's why we consider that the definition is a first start to look at. And based on our research, there is many definitions that have been developed over the years since the 1800s by Le Bon, and over the years, several have emerged, defining each an aspect of social cohesion, but not the complete what social cohesion is about. Some get close, but still they are missing something here and there. So we went about and looked at these definitions, and selected a few that mostly resonate with what is we are doing in Curacao as a small island state. And that gives us the broadest perspective of what social cohesion is still. And these are the ones that most closely resemble that. Of note are the OECD definition and the Council of Europe definition, and including the Maxwell definition. And we adopted the following definition. Resilient societies are built on social cohesion, a sense of belonging. Social cohesion arises when bonds link members of a social group to one another and to the group as a whole, like the fishes. Social cohesion is the ongoing process of developing well-being, sense of belonging, and voluntary social participation of the members of society, while developing communities that tolerate and promote a multiplicity of values and cultures, and grant at the same time equal rights and opportunities in society. Social cohesion involves building shared values, reducing disparities in wealth and income, and generally enabling people to have a sense that they are engaged in a common enterprise, facing shared challenges, and that they are members of the same community. Its four facets are social relations, task relations, perceived unity, and emotions. Cohesion happens at the intersection of the three levels: individual, including family aspects, family dynamic; the community at a wider dynamic, wider stage, wider level, scale; and the institutions, an even greater scale. To illustrate, we have developed a video that conveys the sentiment, and with images and with sound and so forth, with local images as well, incorporating local culture, local aspects of Curacao as much as possible in the dynamic, to make it a dynamic, but also to convey the visuals from nature, involving nature, towards people, and it ends with a family happy together and so forth, basically conveying what social cohesion, when you have social cohesion, when you feel that sense of belonging that makes it cohesive. You have a social cohesion, you're experiencing social cohesion. And I start the video.
So this video is made in very much so in using as much elements of the local community. For instance, you see the carnival, that's a real carnival from 2019, because 2020 we didn't have any, and 2021 either. So people are very keen to that event every year, but 2 years in a row we haven't had it. And the fishes are swimming around, and also the ants showing how they work together, going to the collaboration that making care bags for people that couldn't get food and so forth, to getting to one institution is the family institution, just to give you a sense of what all we took into the video, so that people get a very wide perspective of what we understand as social cohesion, as it is a complex construct. 5 of the areas that are discussed also, or that we 5 of the areas that we also 5 of the areas and domains that are, in a sense, the outcome domains that lead to resiliency are also very clearly portrayed in the video. The next slide basically shows the model I like to use to indicate it shows basically a model, what we shown in the video in a model, and this model shows the people in a community, and one of the things that's important is their relationships. Around that, you see a circle, basically distinguishing a boundary in terms of, is it a group of, is it a family, is it a neighborhood, is it a community at large, is it a society, or it could be also representing an institution, an organization, and people have relationships. Cohesion is based on those links, those connections, and the more connections people have with each other, the stronger the bonds, the stronger the relationship, the stronger the cohesion, and also that leads to greater resiliency, and also economic development and so forth. So that's our thinking using this model. Under the relations, you see the 5 domains that are the outcome domains, and they as well are interrelated. So strengthening of relationships does involve equality, does involve inclusion, does is reciprocally connected, does involve sense of belonging, and reciprocal loyalty, solidarity, truth among individuals of society, and so forth. On the right-hand side, you see an aspect of this model, or what we see in nature, what we see in terms of people together, is that the more, as I mentioned, the more connections, the more resilience. The less of a connection, the least resilience. There's an aspect that is shown here also, is entropy, where as soon as the connections drop out, meaning that people don't invest in new relationships, they don't invest in quality relationships, you have entropy that draws the connections, that then you lose the connections, or the connections break apart. So it takes energy to build connections, it takes energy to keep those connections. So in essence, that's basically our indication, or our definition, and also give you a sense of what social cohesion is. Why is it important? As I mentioned, one of the reasons, and most of the times, going back to this diagram, in this case, we put economic growth. Basically, most people are interested in the economic growth that is the value that they look for in development of social cohesion, or anything in essence. One aspect, very important aspect of that, is the development of these areas. And if you look at these areas, these can be broken down into indicators that if stimulated in one way or another, you will reach the other aspects of resiliency. One other important reason why social cohesion is so important is what the World Economic Forum has very well articulated in their Global Risk and Social Cohesion report. Risks intersecting with societal fractures to bring about severe consequences. Yet with the world more attuned to risk, lessons can be drawn to strengthen response and resilience. In 2020, the risk of a pandemic became reality. As governments, businesses, and societies grapple with the COVID-19, societal cohesion is more important than ever. I've shown you different angles as social cohesion is a complex aspect, construct. One more angle, one more perspective is I shared this video.
But as of right now, I'm not collecting any unemployment. I'm not collecting anything, no. Me and my family, we decided that as of right now, with what we have, we're okay. So I don't need to go out and, seek those additional help for now.
Anika Isaac, good morning. You have a speeding ticket, a red light violation, and 3 overnight parking tickets. Okay, we're going to take a look at the red light violation. The red light violation is on Westminster Street and Manton Avenue. That's your vehicle.
When I got that ticket, I was very shocked because I'm used to that area, so I thought I did it correctly. I think I might have seen a yellow light, and then that's why I kind of did it like that. But if I'm wrong, then I'm sorry.
If you're wrong, you're wrong.
Yeah, if I'm wrong, I apologize.
If you're right, you're right.
Yeah.
And if you're almost wrong and you're almost right,
if I'm wrong, I'll pay the consequences.
You have a very healthy attitude.
Yeah. I mean, it was me. It was my car. It was me that did it. So if I did it, I should pay it.
Are you working, Ms. Isaac?
Towards the end of 2019, I couldn't actually work anymore because I had to have a surgery on my toes where they had to cut 3 of the toes and then make it shorter and put a screw. So I was on a wheelchair and crutches for a long time. And then right around the time I was supposed to get back into the working scene, COVID hit really hard. So I'm not working. It's kind of hard to find a spot, and then every time I find something that I think I could kind of get into, it's just always some kind of little roadblock for me. So as of right now, no, I am currently not.
You're not working?
No, not as of right now.
Yeah. Are you collecting?
No, not as of right now. I didn't even actually receive taxes or a stimulus.
Do you live alone?
So as of right now, I'm living with my dad. So I'm kind of okay in that aspect, but as of right now, I'm not collecting any unemployment. I'm not collecting anything, no. My parents, we actually don't believe in collecting money from the state. Even if we need it, we actually believe just let other people that actually need it use it before we do. And then if we're really struggling, then we go. But me and my family, we decided that as of right now, with what we have, we're okay. So I don't need to go out and, seek those additional help for now.
Well, that is a very, very healthy American attitude.
Yeah, we're from Haiti, so we try to keep the same values.
I want to applaud you on a very extraordinary attitude and sensitivity and compassion toward others, because that's basically what you're telling us, which I think is part of the American way. It's what we all were taught as youngsters, right?
If you
video that's a bit longer, but basically the essence of the video is the individual and her attitude. If you notice the fishes, they have they support each other. With individuals or more individuals with this attitude, imagine what it could be worldwide or within a community itself, within an organization. The individual is the most important aspect of development or increasing
as of right now,
cohesion. Why is it? Why are we conducting the social cohesion survey for Curacao? Why is it important? In our case, just look at some essence of Curacao: the sun, the sea, the food, and how small it is in the Caribbean. Basically, to give you an essence of one of the reasons why it's important is, as a local, this is a word, for instance, we use to describe several aspects. You can see to describe, for instance, sweetheart, delicious, but also if you look sexy, we say douchey. If something is good, we can say it's douchey. So it's like a multi-purpose word, and most people, if you talk to them, they'll say that Curacao is douchey, and there's something in essence of living here that makes you either proud or having a good life in the sense of feeling that you're having a good life. It is not not everybody experience that all the time. There's a lot of people that do not experience that, and there's even I sometimes say, okay, it's douchey sometimes, but sometimes it's not. That's okay, but why is it that? And that's one thing that caused me to go and dig deeper in finding out what is the elements or aspects that causes it to not be douchey sometimes, or sometimes to be douchey or not at other times. In my search and research, what ended up, I wrote an article that was published, and thank you again to the University of Curacao and the University of Puerto Rico that provided the platform for me to present a presentation and then to deliver this article. Basically, Curacao needs a truth and reconciliation process, which sparked my, based on my inspiration and sparked my interest. I've written this. The essence is that Curacao has some challenges. You can go to all the way to the last one is the red access policy. It's in the red access policy. Basically, Curacao, as a small island state, faces some challenges. It can be economies of scale, a relatively small community of 160,000 people, a small economy, scarce resources, heavily dependent on neighboring economies for imports, for instance, a peripheral economy due to the relationship with the Netherlands as a member country of the Dutch Kingdom, relatively at risk and vulnerable to external shocks, such as the climate change and natural disasters. Although we are relatively safe, we have been relatively safe over the last 50 years, at least for hurricanes, but it sometimes comes close. The least data-driven effectiveness, sometimes in certain areas there's no data, and certain areas there's some reliability issues. Over the last 20 years, a laggard in terms of successfully implementing policies that lead to sustainable developments, and that's what we are looking into addressing. And policymaking, leadership, and influencers have the notion that policy implemented somewhere else, addressing what seems to be similar challenges successfully, can be replicated locally as is with the same expected results, which has proven over time and time again that it's not true. Some of the article I wrote had some relevant, in this case, there's several recommendations. The relevant ones were that locally we need to develop, cultivate, and nurture research, and also in particular leverage comparison at a global level through instruments such as Social Progress Index and the Fragile State Index, and etc. I can say that we are doing that through the Thing to Do Institute, in particular this research I'm heading, social cohesion research. And we just finished also a mindset survey, which is something that's pioneering for the last 20 years or so or more. The mindset has been discussed, but never really researched or surveyed, so that we can have an essence of what where it is and what we need to do about it. That is led by another colleague of mine in the Think to Do Institute. So in terms of social cohesion, our theory of change, in terms of theory of change, is a mechanism to go from one point of situation in a country or organization or community to a more improved state of that community or organization. In terms of social cohesion, Curaçao's level of social cohesion is such that it hinders successful implementation of policies which have substantial sustainable impact on the small island states' development towards a more resilient society. And for us, and then increasing social cohesion will increase social implementation of policies which have a substantial sustainable impact. And the increase in successful implementation of policies with a sustainable impact will lead to more resiliency. So this is basically our theory of change. And we, of course, need to validate our thinking in this sense. And that's why, and the reason why also social cohesion. I mentioned also we have just completed a mindset survey. I'm linking the mindset. If you look back to my to the model, you have people and they have relations. People with a growth mindset or abundant mindset are more inclined to seek out new relationships and are more resilient. As you've seen, the girl also her attitude. She is surviving. She's getting by. If she didn't have that attitude, she wouldn't, in a sense. That's what we're thinking too. But in any case, social cohesion is an aspect of we need to research. Survey has been done in 2015, but it's only one time. As you may notice that a state, if you take a state of the fish, picture of the fish swimming, and you study that, then you're already late because the fish have moved around already and changed configuration. It's very dynamic. It's not something that you can take states of pictures of and study that picture. You can take multiple pictures maybe and see the trends. And in that sense, that's why we need to also do a social cohesion survey. We intend to do it every 2 years to not only get a state, but also to look at the trends over the years, at least over the next 10 years. So what is our process that we, in terms of conducting the social cohesion survey, we have used several best practices that you should use. And I'm not going too much over those best practices in terms of, for instance, there is a book of a well-used book of survey methodology and so forth. I am summarizing that I'm attempting to summarize that in this picture in terms of what we are applying in terms of setting up the survey and also making sure that it is a quality survey all across, point to point, so that we can really use that data and in particular make comparisons international, make sure and assure that we can make comparisons internationally. This slide basically shows you the steps we have taken up to now. Basically, instead of, for instance, if you go about developing a survey, you need to get down to getting the questions, creating the questions that you're going to answer, to be linked with, for instance, the 5 outcome domains we mentioned earlier. Those 5 outcome domains have indicators which need to be translated into questions which you get a response on, and that response collected through implementing the survey and analyzing the data, you get the numbers that indicate where we are at with those indicators and the domains. What we have done actually is go out and seek out what surveys are, what countries are doing social cohesion. And we basically looked at how they are doing it. Of course, we select the best ones that we could find, and best being that they are mature. For instance, Australia uses the Scanlon Monash Index as a social cohesion survey, and they have done it for at least 11 years, and now in 2021. And they have several surveys. They have a database of questions that we can leverage. Of course, you cannot just pick that question and use it in our local community and in our local context. So we have gone through the process of looking at several surveys. Some of the other surveys we looked at is, for instance, the Bhutan's Global Happiness, National Global Happiness Index as well. When we do that, we look at it at the level of concepts, such as mentioned, the 5 domain areas. And we also look at the indicators for particular concepts that we are measuring in terms of social cohesion and resiliency. Another survey is the Gallup poll, Gallup confidence in institutions, to gauge the leadership or the trust in institutions. And there's another one that's called the the sense of coherence, that measures the well-being of the participant, and so that we get a sense of the well-being as well. Some of these concepts you can find them in each one of the surveys, except for the Gallup survey. You can find them, for instance, in Bhutan and the Scanlon survey and the sense of coherence survey. However, we chosen the question based on our context, much more that is much more affiliated or closer to our context. We added also the demographics that we will need to make comparison in terms of financial, or actually the socio-economic status of the individuals or our community in our community. And so we went through that. That basically, out of compiling those questions, was 293 questions. There was 77, came down to 77, and so forth. At this time, the survey is about 77 questions, but after adding the demographics questions as well. Then we went through a screening process internally with members of the think tank. We did the screening in terms of the compliance. Does it do the questions make sense? Does the survey meet the IRB requirements? The next step is then to draft the introduction after reviewing all these things, to draft the appropriate introduction to the survey. And now we are testing it in the field. We do have some challenges in terms of getting enough people to do the survey. Due to COVID, most institutions are involved with COVID heavily. We are a small island, so resources are limited. And we do also have most people are tired, in a sense, we call that COVID fatigue, that it's challenging to get them to participate. I'll try to very quickly introduce the concept that is called generability. It's been introduced, or it's being promoted by the JPAL Institute lab, actually, of MIT. And go ahead to the next ones. And I can introduce it by these questions in terms of can a study inform policy only in the location in which it was undertaken? In our case, as a small island state with limited resources and so forth, this was interesting because we cannot do, we don't have the resources, all the resources all the time to do the different surveys, or even in terms of policy, to do random controlled trials or impact evaluations and so forth, we can use or leverage research that's been done elsewhere. And there's the questions that most of the time, in terms of using research from elsewhere, you need to be aware of pitfalls. Should we use only whatever evidence we have from our specific locations? Should a new local randomized evaluation always be preceded to scale before scale up? Must an identical program or policy be replicated a specific number of times before it is scaled up? These questions are good to be aware of, to be not to be limited or stuck in not using research that has been done elsewhere. And the JPAL Institute, under the lead of, if I'm not mistaken, Rachel Glenister, the director. She's a Brit, that they came up with a framework, a generalizability framework that basically aims to ensure or allow globally informed and locally grounded policy making. These are the steps basically that you can walk through to ensure that if the research done elsewhere is interesting, that it can be leveraged. This doesn't go separate from, it goes in tandem with your theory of change. In these pictures, I just show you some of the aspects of the theory of change. You've seen what we use at this time. The one I showed earlier is a very core or compact theory of change. But like I showed also that in getting Curacao to a resilient society, we need to establish the level of social cohesion, so that's one of the aspects we need to add, and we needed to do a mindset, and there are more as we go. As well as we do our research, we find out on the way that there are more things to do. But then what can you do all of them or not? That's the question as well, in terms on our path. And the generalizability framework allows you to answer those questions, which ones would be suitable to be used. And three aspects is I want to highlight here is that local conditions, you need to make sure that you are aware of that local conditions do make an impact on whether the research from elsewhere can be replicated. And there are, for instance, behaviors that can be generalized and that can be applied locally as well. But and there we can decide, for instance, is it worth to do? Sometimes you need to verify locally, but is it worth to use a behavioral study from the US or from China and so Thailand and so forth, Brazil, to also give us indications of how people behave in Curacao. Maybe we need to do a particular one so we can verify that in terms of generalized lessons on behavior. And definitely one of the pitfalls in Curacao is the implementation. That's where everything that has been tried in terms of copying a policy from a community in Holland, because since we are so linked to Holland, people tend to think that you can copy policy from Holland to Curacao. It doesn't work, and it gets stuck in implementation. In terms of next steps, very briefly, there are two tracks we may have noticed. We need to complete the survey, and we have challenges with the pilot at this time. Local conditions, the language, we translated the survey in 2 languages. Actually, it's in English and Papiamento, the local language here. And considering also to translate it in Dutch and Spanish. And also keep a very sharp eye on the implementation of the survey. On the long run, we do have to do that path. We do have to walk that path of providing the research to inform policy. That's a longer term at this time. That's the longest scope. Go to the next, John. And in essence, basically, next, and yeah. So in essence, I provided to you with definition of social cohesion. Defined the importance of social cohesion. We went over the link of social cohesion and Curacao, elaborated on the process we are currently conducting, and shared some specifics in conducting the survey. Again, because of time, there's a lot more. And conclusion is, and next step, conclusion is that we need to basically keep a very sharp eye in terms of how we are implementing it for the time being. So if you want to, before our discussion, open discussion, if there's no more time, this is my contact information. If you want to join the think tank, it's an independent global think tank, so you can join, and from anywhere you are. Because of time, I can elaborate on that, but everything is on the website. And also, if you haven't joined Ronin Institute, I will highly recommend it. And we are then ready for discussion if people are able to. Some people may have to go because we are already on the top of the hour. So the next slide will give you some references, relevant references.
Excellent. So thank you so much. Angela is absolutely wonderful. And thank you to everyone for your, as some people commented, we got a little opportunity to exhibit some social cohesion and resilience. Thank you everyone for bearing with us as we had a few little tech issues, which is part and parcel of being a globally distributed organization.